Hello, everyone. My guest today is Don Weobong. He's the founder and president of Telania, a technology software as a service company based in Louisville, Kentucky. He specializes in helping organizations solve tough challenges through e-learning technology, leaves of absence management solutions, and sales channel management. His premier product is a company called eLeaP. Don, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right. What does eLeaP do, and what's your revenue model? How do you make money?
So eLeaP is a system that helps companies essentially translate what they've been doing for a long time into more efficient ways to basically train people, get more performance out of employees. And the way we make money is from a recurring revenue model. It's a subscription model, software as a service. So they pay us every month, every quarter, every year, depending on the contract that negotiated with us. We also have an e-commerce channel. So folks that don't have employees but want to create content and market can use our system to do that. And so we essentially have those two major tracks. A third track is where you have consultants, right? They work with companies for staffing purposes or whatever. And sometimes a client can come in and say, well, we want to have a solution for training. Do you know anybody? So they will essentially be able to set up their client using our system as a white label and push out the system to the client.
Got it. Very cool. And I don't want to talk about kind of every different customer cohort, but on average, what's a customer pay you per month for this?
On average, we have about 1,000 per month.
1,000 per month.
We start off at the low end of 25 employees, which is $125 a month, but our sweet spot is about 1,000 a month.
Okay, and that's per kind of company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And put this on a timeline for me. When did you launch?
We launched in October of 2005.
2005. Very good. And then fast forward to today, how many customers are you working with?
We have right now actives 1,035 active companies.
Okay. And those are, just to be clear, those are paying customers.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so can I multiply that times an average of $1,000 a month? That would mean you're doing about $1 million per month right now.
Right about that. But I mean, we obviously have clients that have negotiated different price points with us. So
yeah. So what is your actual run rate today? What are you doing per month?
For per month, because we've got the two revenue channels.
Just SaaS.
Yes, the software. We do about 600 or so a month.
That's pretty. That's a healthy SaaS company there. So $600,000 per month divided by 1,035 teams basically means the average one pays you $580 per month or something around there.
Something around that, yes. Sir.
And what's the SaaS part of the company growing at? So a year ago today, what were you doing per month?
Oh, a year ago. So we went through a dip with SEO issues. We were pretty much holding tight. I think a year ago we're at right about 500 a month. I mean, Basically we went through, we grew real fast, and then we had issues with SEO stuff. We dipped, and then we are coming back again.
What's the SEO? What was the SEO issue?
Well, a competitor basically sent a bunch of fake links to us and then turned around and reported us to Google. Mm-hmm. And so they looked at it and they were like, well, you guys have a bunch of bad links, and so we're going to manually demote your rankings. And we worked with them to remove links and clean up all kinds of stuff, and went back to them and said, hey, we've done our work.
How did you do that? I can imagine if that happened to one of my listeners, they would go, well, who at Google do I even reach out to try and solve this?
Dude, it was painful. I think I went through about 3 companies before we finally got one that worked out for us.
You mean you used them to help you get connected to Google to fix it?
Yeah. So essentially the issue was, look, you need to go clean up. And so it was a manual process. And so the issue was, who is a reputable company to work with? And of course, who can actually at the end of the day guarantee that you've done the work, and when Google takes a look, they'll be okay with it. And so the first company said, yeah, well, I think we paid them, it was right about $1,000 a month actually to help us do this. And then about 6 months later, it didn't happen. So we kicked them out, got another company. And then a third one, eventually I got involved in the process, which is really where I started. Since 2001, I've been in e-commerce in some fashion. I worked with GoTo before, Google AdWords and all that stuff. And so I knew about web marketing. But
so who was it? What's the name? Just in case someone else wants to use them, what's the name of the final company you work with? The one that did a good job?
Ooh,
do you know?
Not off the top of my head. I can get it for you.
Okay, that's okay. Sure, and talk to me about funding. So have you bootstrapped the company, or did you decide to raise?
Bootstrapped. I had initial investors that essentially just put a little bit in there and helped us get out.
How much, Don?
Gosh, it was very little. It was less than 100,000.
Okay, so less than $100,000. And okay, so you used that money to build up the initial platform?
Yeah, build initial platform, marketing, sales, that kind of thing. But then it's been just plowed back. We're able to eventually buy out outside investors and essentially,
So you own 100% of the company now?
My wife and I own 100%.
Oh, good. I love that. Husband-wife team. That's great. And talk to me, churn is critical in a SaaS business. So what's your guys' churn today?
Ooh, churn is, I'm looking at my numbers here. I think we're looking at about 5%.
Okay, and that's 5% logo churn or revenue churn per month?
This is actual revenue churn per month. I'm just looking at my numbers real quick. I wanted to make sure I get some reports before I call and
you knew what to expect, huh?
I've checked a few videos before, so.
do you like the format of the show? It's fun, right?
It is great. It was fast-paced. It's good information. I'm like, I don't want to make a complete idiot of myself. I better do something.
Well, I think you're doing great. So 5% revenue churn per month, which means multiplied by 12, that's about 60% of revenue churn per year. Do you have any expansion revenue?
Yeah, I mean, we've basically been saving a lot of cash. So the reason why is because as a small business, we have to be able to take advantage of opportunities. So we actually are right now in the middle of the V5 build of our eLeaP system, version 5, and that means we plowing in lots of money into UX and UI and all that good stuff.
Do you have, though, Don, when I talk about expansion revenue, what I mean is if you look at all the customers that signed up exactly 1 year ago, when their contracts come up to renew, do you upsell them anything? Do you have additional things you expand their revenue to or no?
Yes, we do. So we have content also, and our content model is basically a partnership with a content firm so that we can bring them content that we license, and so we sell them. It's not as aggressive as I would like it to be.
Okay.
On hold, I would say it's less than 2%.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. And then what about acquiring new customers? What do you pay to acquire new customers?
So our model has been traditionally. We try to keep it less than 20% cost acquisition.
Less than 20% of what? First year value?
First year revenue. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if your first year revenue is about $7,000 on these customers, what you're saying is you're willing to spend up to, what does that number come out to? About $1,300, something like that, to acquire them?
Yeah, right about that. Yeah.
And where are you spending that typically?
We're spending the bulk of it in outbound sales calls. SEO, obviously, but in my experience with just this industry, it's been so complicated and, well, not complicated, it's more competitive is what I want to say in terms of SEO. So we figured out the best approach for us in terms of revenue and just being efficient is to actually do outbound calls. So we're kind of going back to the old-fashioned way of doing business in the SaaS model, which wasn't where I wanted to be, but we found that this was the most effective way for us to get new revenue. So we just call, set appointments, do demos, walk them through the system, close, that kind of thing.
Don, tell me how you have this structure, though. So what's the total team size today?
We are a small company. We are 15 people.
15. How many of them are doing outbound calls?
We've got 10 of them doing outbound calls.
Wow. Okay. That's a big chunk of doing outbound calls. Okay. And how many calls do they make per day, would you say?
Ooh, we've got about, what's it called, per hour? 400. I'm just doing the math in my head.
Actually, talk out loud because it's valuable.
I'm doing the math in my head real quick. Each one does about 400 calls.
Per what?
In a week.
In a week.
And
okay, so about 400. That's fine. Each one does 400 calls in a week. So you're doing 4,000 in a week.
Yeah.
Who are they calling?
Our business model is more for small to medium size. We find that we can get easier decisions made that way. So we're talking about anybody from 300 employees to about lower thousands. I mean, we're talking less than 1,000. We typically can get them to make decisions fairly quickly.
Yep. And then your website, it's eLeaP software, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And is this basically that, if they will buy your product so that they can teach their internal team members more about the business faster? Is that right?
Yeah, they buy the product and they have to do trainings on all kinds of things. So,
but most of my point is it's internal. It's not to their customers.
It's internal. Yes, it's internal. Now, our e-commerce model has some of our customers essentially using some of the internal content that they create to sell to basically suppliers and others. So they can use our system to sell content.
To like sell some of their internal processes out to other people?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's actually super interesting. Okay, very cool. And then so 15 people total. And where's everybody based?
Majority of our team is based here in Kentucky. We have folks in Europe, and then we have folks in the Philippines.
And so with this kind of model, like if I start paying you for this and I start putting my processes in your system, like I don't want to churn because then I lose all my processes, all the documentation. Why is 60% per year is pretty high. Why do so many churn?
So this industry has got traditionally it's upwards of 90% of people are not happy with their LMS. Sometimes it's an issue of we just outgrew the system, if you will. We needed to interface with our HRIS system, to interface with some external system, and so on and so forth. So that tends to be a tough thing. Now, if we do our job properly, they do keep their business with us. 4 or 5 years.
So what do you have to get them to do in the first month of paying to make them super sticky?
We have to get them using the system. They have to.
But what does that mean?
Well, create content, deploy content, be able to begin to get tracking reporting in the system. And essentially, if it's an HR person, be able to go to the stakeholders and say, look, here's what I basically promised you guys that we're going to be able to do. We're not spending as much time on consultants coming in. We're not spending time on people traveling to headquarters. We've cut back on XYZ. Now, because we're a training field, they need to show some change in behavior, some performance metric. But that doesn't come in the first month. So what we've now tried to do is go back to them pretty much every quarter and say, what can we do to help you basically be better in your job? What can we train you on? What are some of the new things that we can show you that you can then take to your boss and say, this is what this thing is doing for us?
Yep.
We've not done that very well in the past. We used to kind of just hope that they will do it themselves, and that's been part of the issue.
Yeah. Who owns more of the company, you or your wife?
I do.
Don, you're supposed to say she has 51%.
I know. Well,
listen, are you still married?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's working then, right?
Yeah, it's working. It's tough, but we've got opportunities that have come in that basically are like women-owned, minority company.
That's great.
Check. And I'm like, yeah, can't go there. But we'll see.
All right, Don, talk to me here. Let's wrap up with the famous 5. What's your favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Wow. Execute. Execution. Gary something. I forget the name of the guy. But I read it when I was doing my MBA, and it's stuck with me. I actually like Crush It too, from Gary Vaynerchuk.
Both good. Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
I like Richard Branson a lot. I like his style. I like the fact that he's always tried to be as laid back as he can be. And so I like to model him.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool?
Favorite online tool? Wow, that's a tough one. I've got several of them. Believe it or not, it's Google Drive.
That's a good one. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Honestly?
Yeah.
6.
Okay, that's not horrible. That's pretty good. And what's your situation? Obviously, you're married. Any kiddos?
Yeah, two boys.
2. Wow. And how old are you?
I'm 44.
44. Last question, Don. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Dude, go out there and just do it. Reiterate. Go ahead and do it.
Guys, there you have it. Go out there, do it, get it started. They're in Kentucky, just past 600 grand per month in revenue, a solution that helps enterprise teams build processes and document them internally so they can teach other team members faster. Currently over 1,000 customers paying 500, 600 bucks per month. They're growing, call it 20, 30% year over year, up from 450 grand a month just about a year ago. Raised very little capital, less than 100 grand, and they bought those investors out. So fully owned by Don and his wife, founded in 2005, team of 15 people, mainly in Kentucky. 10 of them are doing outbound calls, 4,000 a week. That's their prime channel, spending 1,300 bucks to acquire customers. So it's a 3-month payback period. Don, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thank you so much.